Hello everyone, and welcome to another Codesign installation video. Today, we'll be going over our asset, CD Garage. You're going to navigate to your Keymaster profile. You're going to find your CD Garage resource, and you're going to click download. I've already downloaded it, so I'm not going to download it again. You're going to navigate to your downloads folder. You're going to find cdgarage.pack.zip. You're going to extract the file somewhere on your desktop or directly into your server. And then you're going to navigate to docs.codesign.pro. It's going to take you straight to our documentation website. You're going to find Garage under Paid Scripts and give it a click. Okay. Step 0 is downloading, which we've already went through. Step 1, Fxmanifest. Depending on your framework and dependencies, you may need to make some changes inside the CD Garage/Fxmanifest.lua. We made this easier by commenting out these lines you possibly need to change. So let's go to our Fxmanifest. Okay, once we're at our base CD Garage folder, you need to navigate to Fxmanifest.lua. Double click it and open it up in your Visual Code Studio or whatever text editor you use. The only real change you need to make inside of this file is if you use auxlib on line 11, you need to uncomment this line. And this should be the only thing that you need to do in the manifest if you are using CD-based resources, meaning Codesign draw text, which is defined here. If you need or you decide that you want to use a different draw text, you need to comment this line out, because if you do not, and the resource CD draw text.ui is not running, Garage will not start. So now we need to navigate back to our docs page, and we need to move to step 2. You must read all configurable options inside the config.lua file. Configure them to your server's needs. Please read the commented out HEP text at the end of each line so you can understand what each option means. So let's navigate to the config. We're going to the configs folder, config.lua. Okay, we're going to start at the top of our config.lua. If you use QBCore or ESX, you can leave config.framework to auto detect. It is stated right here in the comment. If you use a custom framework or any other framework besides ESX or QBCore, you need to set it to other and change your framework triggers. Database, it's the same type of deal. Auto detect if you use MySQL, GHMat SQL, or Aux MySQL. Auto insert SQL will automatically insert the database tables that garages need the first time the resource is ran. Meaning, once your first resource, or your first run, of this resource on your server, it will automatically insert the SQL tables. So it does it for you automatically. After you run this once, you can set this to false, and your tables will be structured correctly. Same thing with auto detect on notification. It detects base ESX notification, base QBCore notification, OK notify, Project Sloth UI, and auxlib notifications. If you use any other, then you need to enter the string value other and then configure it. And we will go over that in a minute. Okay, from here, we're going to navigate back to our docs page and we're going to go to step 4, configuring keybinds. Now, we at Codesign use FiveM's key mapping. We do this so that keybinds are customizable for every customer's player on their server. Now, if you fail to change the keybinds here under config.keys and you load the resource for the first time, and then you think, oh, I want to change that keybind. That is not possible. You have already ran the resource and the keybinds have, that is not possible. The keybinds have already been ran through the server and are now stored on the client side key bindings page of the settings. So this is very important that you make sure these keybinds are exactly what you want before you run this resource the first time in your server. Now let's navigate back to our documents page. And step 5, install dependencies. So we'll navigate back to our CD Garage, go to our dependencies folder. Garage Shell is already included, so you need to put that inside the file directory of your server and make sure that it is started before your garage. CD draw text has a text file with the GitHub download link. Same thing with EasyTime and Keymaster. They are also listed conveniently on our docs page. Okay, let's move to step 6. If you're wanting to use CD Garage's built-in vehicle system, you do not need to make any changes for the vehicle keys. We have already done it for you. You will automatically be given keys when you spawn a vehicle from the garage. If you use a different key script, we have added some compatibility, but not all of them. You have to navigate to the client _customizeme.lua and find the function named give vehicle keys. If you do not use any vehicle key script, then you can skip this step. Now, let's go to the vehicle's keys function. We're going to go to configs, client customizeme.lua. Scroll down. And we're going to scroll down to line 357. And this is the function that we're looking for. We define plate and vehicle depending on how your key script handles giving keys. And you need to add your key script export or server event or client event here if it is not listed below. All right, so let's navigate back to our docs page. We're on to step 7 now. This handles your vehicle plates. Long story short, if you use QB-Core, use the mixed option. If you use ESX Vehicle Shop and your plates are formatted with 6 combined letters and numbers with 2 spaces, use the mixed option. If your plates are generated with no spaces, use the trimmed. Let's navigate back to our config.lua. I'll show you where that is at. Config.plateFormats is already set to mixed with the fresh download, so we do not have to change that. Okay, let's navigate back to our docs page. This is the section of our optional features. We'll start with vehicle data, basically vehicle names. This explains it, that we grab the data from ESX framework from the vehicles database table. And we also give you the option that if you have multiple vehicle database tables, like for donated vehicles, emergency vehicles, such on and so forth, we give you an option in the config.lua to define those. Okay, now on to boat and air garages. We have a garage resource integration page right here that provides code snippets from other authors that have wrote to us and have provided us with the code that needs to be integrated into their resource for this to work correctly. If it's not on that page, what you need to do is either edit the SQL query or trigger this event. Ideally, the garage type should be set in the same SQL query that adds the vehicle to the database when the vehicle is purchased. The garage type column only can be set to 3 values: car, boat, and air. In the event, we have an event that can be triggered client side and server side. You need to trigger this event when a player is sitting inside the vehicle. So, for instance, if you have a boat shop and you purchase the boat, after the player is either warped onto the boat or in the boat driver's seat, or they're sitting in the boat, you need to trigger this event client side, and it will automatically get the vehicle type and update it in the garage type column. Okay, for the next optional feature in our garage, we have private garages. Private garages are basically a person or player's private garage. You have to run a chat command in order to set them. That chat command is here in the config.lua under private garages. If you want to disable this feature, set this value to false. You can also change and edit the chat commands for creating or deleting a private garage. And you also have to have the authorized job in order to run these commands. Now we move on to property garages. If you use a paid property resource, then the author of that resource is best suited to help you, because we don't send the location for the property garages. It's sent by the property resource. But we have some of the paid property resource already integrated, and we have it in our integration page. These are the events that you need to trigger: spawning a vehicle from a property garage. You can either choose quick or inside. Quick meaning that the quick UI pops up, letting you quickly select a car, whereas inside teleports you inside the garage shell. And if you're using quick, then you just need to set this value to nil. Or if you're using inside, it needs to have a shell defined. Now, for storing a vehicle, this is the event client side that you need to trigger. If you're on QBCore, you don't have to make any changes. We already do it for you. Okay, the next feature we have in optional features is fake plates. In order to use fake plates, you have to have CD Garage's built-in vehicle keys turned on. Now you can configure the item spawn name and the jobs that can remove a fake plate. You can do that in the config under fake plates section. This is the item name. This is the chat command that is used to remove a fake plate from the vehicle. And this is if you only want to allow certain jobs to remove fake plates. If this is set to false, anyone can remove a fake plate. And then if you have this set to true, you need to define which jobs in this table can remove fake plates. Now we go back to our documents page. And as an optional feature for vehicle keys, you need to remove any other vehicle keys resource or another resource that handles vehicle key logic if you're using the built-in key system. Basically, we need to trigger an event to give a person's keys to a vehicle if it is spawned and meant to be used by that player. The event is here. And vehicle always needs to be defined. We provide examples here, like for ESX. You will navigate to the server of EX extended onesync.lua, and you need to add these two lines of code here. So that way, when a vehicle is spawned and called by this function, it automatically adds the vehicle keys to that vehicle. It's the same for QBCore. Now on QBCore, you need to add an event into the QBCore :client : vehicle info function. It is under QBCore /clients/events.lua, and this is the code. You need to put it right under the local has keys equals true. If you do not use the built-in vehicle key system, then you do not have to make this change to your QBCore events.lua. We also have some paid resources with permission from the author to show you how to integrate giving keys to the vehicle. For example, in OK Vehicle Shop, you go to server utils.lua approximately line 72 and trigger this line at the bottom of this event. Okay, let's move on to our next step in our optional features. Persistent vehicles. Persistent vehicles works so that if a vehicle is ever despawned, be it from OneSync or you relogged or whatever reason, the vehicle's last save position is saved if it's been sitting still for longer than 5 seconds. Now, please note that if you have a server restart, vehicle position will not be saved. Now, in order to use persistent vehicles, you have to trigger events when a vehicle is spawned and when you need to remove the vehicle. For example, if you want a jobs vehicle that is not spawned through CD Garage to be persistent, you need to add this event to the vehicle spawning function of that resource. Kind of the same thing for removing, but the exact opposite. If a vehicle is persistent and you try to delete it, it will respawn unless you trigger this event on the client side. Now, for base ESX, we show you the function in persistent vehicles of where to add the remove persistent vehicle event in function esx.game.delete vehicle. Anytime this function is called and you have added this server event, it will automatically remove the persistent vehicle. Same thing with QBCore. We have added it here, and anytime this function is called, this event is triggered and it will remove the persistent vehicle. Okay, let's move on to the next feature, and that is job garages. Now we have three options for job garages: regular, personal owned, and society owned. I will explain these options and then we will go through them in the config. Regular job vehicles, these are spawned and not owned by anyone, meaning if you spawn it and you customize it, when you go to park it, it just deletes the vehicle and it does not save it. Personal owned, the name kind of explains it. A person or player owns that specific vehicle. Now, you can do this three ways. You can manually change the value in the job personal owned column of your vehicle table, or you can trigger the SQL query or the event. This is the client side, and you have to be setting inside the vehicle when this is triggered. So for instance, if you have a vehicle shop that you use for your jobs, once the person is inside the vehicle, you can trigger this event and it will automatically update the job underscore personal owned column for you. And you won't have to go in and manually enter it or run an SQL query. Now, this is how it should look in your database. As you can see, the job underscore personal own is populated by the job name. Now, society owned is basically there is a pool of cars that is owned by a job. And if a person pulls out vehicle A, then another person can't come in and pull out vehicle A because vehicle A is already out. So basically, the owner of the vehicle is that job group. And the same thing applies for the query or an event. Once again, the event has to be triggered when the person is sitting inside the vehicle. Now, For the latest versions of QB Core, you cannot use society-owned garages. All right, let's move to the config.lua. Scroll down until we find job garages. Okay, now you can enable them here. Choose your libraries. Basically, when you have this set to true, when a vehicle is spawned, people can choose their livery on their vehicle. Shared job keys, meaning that if Officer A pulls out a car and runs off and leave it, then Officer B has keys to that vehicle, but you have to be using the built-in keys feature. Locations, and this defines everything here. So basically, for the first job garage, you need to put a vector 3. For the spawn coords where the vehicle is going to spawn, it needs to be a vector 4. The distance is the check on how far before you can access the garage. Garage type, meaning car, air, and boat. And method is where you determine if you want to use regular, personal owned, or society owned. And we've already pre-configured some garages for you. Now, if you use the regular method, you need to define what vehicles you want to be used. They need to go in sequential order. We show you an example of how to do police and ambulance. You need to define the job, decide if you want them to spawn with max upgrades, example, turbo, transmission, engine, brakes, suspension, all upgraded to the max. This is where you can define the plate that you want the vehicle to spawn with, the minimum job grade required for that vehicle, the garage type. If it's a car, it needs to be car, boat, air, so on and so forth. And then you define the model of the vehicle, aka the spawn code. This is all defined up here if you have any questions. Okay, let's move on to gang garages. Now, gang garages are only for QB Core because gangs are handled differently in QB Core. For ESX, you just need to use a job garage because ESX handles gangs like jobs. So we're going to go back to our config.lua. And we're going to find the gang section. If you want to use gang garages only for QB Core, remember, you need to set this to true. And you need to define, if you changed it, what the name of a person that does not have a gang tied to their character is. None is default QB Core. This you can adjust the sprite, scale, and color of the gang garage blip. We link the blips page here for you. Now, as far as locations, they have to be in sequential order. Do not forget the comma at the end. You need to have the gang's name. The garage ID has to be unique. The vector of the garage location and the spawn vector 4 of where you want the vehicles to spawn. The distance check before you can access the garage and the garage type. Basically the same thing as a garage, a job garage, just for gangs on QB Core. Okay, let's go back to our docs page and go over the next step. Changing the garage names. If you want to change the name, you need to configure the garage ID variable in the locations. The script will automatically take the rest for you regarding the database, meaning that if you go into our config and you want to change, for instance, garage ID to Legion Square, you would change it here, and it would automatically change it in the database for you. Okay, now we go to Garage Phone Apps optional features. Most likely out of the box, your Garage Phone app will not work. But if you go to our Garage Resource Integration page, for QB Phone, you have to replace a callback, and it is in QB Phone server main.lua. And this link right here takes you to the exact line, which is line 180. Same thing for renewed phone. If you want to add custom vehicle logos to your vehicle brands, this tutorial will show you how to do so. Okay, let's head back to our config.lua. Now, if you want to add any extra garages or change them, you can simply copy from bracket to bracket and then you need to change your garage ID to whatever you want. For instance, we're going to change this one to Toledo. I want it to be a car, and then your X underscore 1, your Y underscore 1, and your Z underscore 1 are going to be your vector for where the garage menu is placed, and the distance check from these values at which you can access the menu. The X underscore 2, Y underscore 2, Z underscore 2, and H underscore 2 are going to be the location at which the vehicle spawns. Enable blip. If you want it to display a blip, set this value to true, else you want to set it to false, and this will not display the blip for this garage. And if you want to use the 40 car shell garage, you would simply change it from the 10 to the 40. It's the same way with boat and air garages. All you need to do is change the type from either car, boat, or air, whichever one you like. If you have any issues or have any questions about this resource or any of our other resources, feel free to please reach out to us on our Discord by opening a ticket. Thank you.